It's testing time. Yes, hello, welcome to a video. This week's video will be a bit of airbrushing. Now, you probably know for some time I've been recommending this set of airbrushes. I'll just give you a better look at it. It's a set from Sealy called part number AB935. And in there you get 6 airbrushes and 6 jars. Now, these are a little bit dusty. They got used in Ireland last year at the seminar there. But I can't find any sets of these online anymore since COVID. So it's a bit of a shame because that's a nice little setup to have airbrushes with different colours attached all the time. So what I've been looking for are alternatives, and there are a couple that I've come up with. And the first of these, if I go onto the overhead camera, is this dual action airbrush from Fengda, which costs £22.95. If you're getting into airbrushing and you want to just get one airbrush and try it out, these setups are pretty good because you get the airbrush, of course. You also get an air hose, and so if you already have a compressor, you've got everything here that you need because you get one jar of color for color as well. It also comes with 3 needles, so you can do all sorts of different applications. There is a 0.8mm needle, a 0.5mm needle that's inside the airbrush, and a 0.3. Now 0.5 will generally do fine for most of the things that I use. And remember, I'm not doing artwork with these airbrushes. So they are just being used to spray stain. I mostly spray stain. And these feel very nicely made in the hand. They're quite weighty. You know, if you wanted to set yourself up with 3 or 4 of these airbrushes so that you could have 3 colours at once on the go, that wouldn't be too horrific an expense. But if you really want to just get into, see if you want to get into airbrushing, then I would recommend getting a gravity fed airbrush as a single airbrush to begin with. And this is another one from Fengda. Both of these airbrushes I've bought myself. They haven't been given to me. They are things I've spent money on. This one is a little bit cheaper, £21.55. And it comes with 2 needles in a box as well. This one unfortunately a little bit broken. Again, it comes with an air hose, although I have fitted on, because I've got the connection for it, a quick connector. And it comes with a 0.2 and a 0.3mm needle. I'm going to be using it with the needle that was installed, which is a 0.2mm needle. When you swap the needle over, you also have to swap the end of the airbrush. So this is the fitting that you would fit with the 0.3 needle. Now, if you've only got one airbrush, obviously you're going to have to do a bit of cleaning out between colours, and that can get a bit irksome. One of the ways that you can best clean out an airbrush is to have one of these cleaners to spray into, so that you can spray your cleaner out into a filtered jar. If you don't have one of those, then just spray it into a towel. An old towel you've got in the workshop, just spray it in so you're not filling the workshop with clouds of spray. Or even a piece of kitchen roll. But if you plan your order of what you're going to be colouring, then you can work from one colour to a slightly darker colour each time, and maybe get away with it without doing any cleaning. Now, a few little features on this airbrush just to point out, because it is a little more than some of the standard very cheap airbrushes that you can see. As I say about the other one, it's quite weighty, feels quite solid in the hand, feels nicely made. There's a nice action that's quite smooth, pulling back on the trigger. You've got a little adjuster here That will adjust how much air gets to the front of your airbrush, so you can limit the force of the spray. And it also has a nut on the back which you can turn. Now this controls how far back you pull this trigger. So you press down for air and then pull back for colour. And you can see here the collet nut that's attached onto the end of the needle moving back, so that tells you that your needle is coming back from the cone at the front of the airbrush. Now that backward motion, the more you pull it back, the more paint comes on. If you want to have more control of that, you can use this nut at the end. If you twist that in, that limits, or in some cases completely stops, how far you can pull it back. So I can pull it back a little way. If I unscrew that further, I can pull it back more. So if you've struggled to get fine control with how much stain is coming out, use that to limit the amount coming out, so that you don't get a big splurge shooting out the end when you don't want it. Right, so let's get on with a really simple project. I need to get some gloves, and my ambition is to try to do this video in one shot so that I don't have to spend a long time editing. These gloves have been used before, a little bit grubby. It really is important to protect your skin from the stains, and also of course your face, to have face protection, eye protection. I've got some safety glasses over here, which really are the bare minimum. And also protect your lungs. Dust mask won't cut it. You need one that is rated for vapor, has the code A1 is what you're looking for. Here we go. So on here we've got A1 P3 filter. He says, taking his finger away from it. So this will filter for the spray in the air as well. Let's put that to one side for now. The glasses there in case I need them. Right, so I'm going to use a very simple stencil which I have cut out here. Just a little serrated sort of geometric pattern edge. Get the compressor fired up and get our first colour connected or put into the airbrush. Just check that's working. That's working nicely. You can hear the compressor coming in. Now I've put some stains into these little bottles and labelled them. Really, you don't need very much. I'll come on the overhead. I think it'll be a clearer picture. So I'm just going to put a few drops of that in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20, about 25 drops. That probably won't be enough to go all the way around this piece of wood, piece of beech, but we get started. So I'm just going to hold the template onto the wood, spray around the edge. So I'm starting with yellow, and I'll work on to darker colours so that I can get away with cleaning. But then I will show you how I clean the airbrush at the end. So with the yellow, it's quite faint, but it will stand out a lot more when we've got the other colours on. And if there are any gaps at the end and I've cleaned the airbrush out, I might come back to do a little bit more yellow. Just want to use different bits of the template so that we don't end up with a repeated pattern. I'm not too bothered about spraying a lot over the template. We've run out of drops. Let's put a few more in. Probably not 25 this time, because I've only got a little way to go. Also, remember one of the tips about using a template, it gets a bit mucky. You can dry it off on a piece of kitchen roll. Let's do the last couple of bits. Yeah, so I'm not too bothered about going that far over it because the other colours will sit on top of that. So just want to use it up. Let's come back to this one. Oh, got a nasty smudge of colour there. Okay, so that's pretty much all gone. Let's just put a few little splashes of this colour to use it up. So now I can switch from yellow to orange, and it should be just a straightforward put the colour in and get on with it. Right, let's get the stencil ready. Hold it in position. Turn it round. Cover up some of that yellow. So where there are little gaps at the moment, we're going to come back with two other colours. You can see the orange takes a much crisper, clearer edge because it's a bit darker. It shows up a lot better. You can vary how intense the colour is by how far you pull the trigger back or how close you go with your airbrush. Go in that gap, move on to a different piece of it. Now, of course, you could do this. You don't have to do this in radial lines. You could do it running across horizontally, so building up the idea of a sort of city skyline. I'm not too bothered about where we've got bits of black showing. Little smudges just for today. This is just a quick video. Well, quickly filmed. It might end up lasting a long time, which you'll have to sit through. There we go, another little bit of it. Nearly all the way round. So other colour combinations this might work with. You could maybe try the two chestnut blues, going to purple and then black. Right, just put a little bit too much orange in there. I don't need to use all of that, so I'm just going to push it out into the cleaner. You should see some fumes coming out from the filter there, so that's why you don't just blast it into the air. That will be capturing some of those fumes. Right, I think that's all done. Yep, blowing empty. So now we come on to red. So about 35 drops seems to probably be enough to get all the way around once. So now I want to try and fill up any gaps. So I'm putting the template and making sure I've got some gaps showing, and then I can spray those gaps. And like I said earlier, I may need to come back with the yellow just to fill in any areas of wood that don't get any colour on. So this is giving us sort of softer, where it's going, mixing with the orange. It's blending the harsher edges. Well, harsher, clearer, crisper edges. You might like something with a clear, crisp edge. Leaving some space still because I'm going to come on with the final colour, which will be black. And this is a template I've been threatening to make at lots of club demos when I've done sort of softer edges with a cloud cover. Oh, I've used quite a lot of red. Let's put some more in. That didn't quite go halfway. Take this as an opportunity to dry off the stencil. There we go. You can see a bit more of what's going on. Coming round, bit of a gap there. That's strange, even though I've dried it off, I've put a lot of muck on there. So you can get quite interesting, complicated looking designs coming up with just very simple technique. Nothing too tricky or hard about this process, other than trying to keep your work clean, which is not proving too easy this morning. So just a little bit of that left, blast it into there, and then we come on to the last colour, which is black. So a little squeeze in there. So these little bottles are really quite handy to use. Rather than using one of the large bottles and pouring in, I find it much easier to use those little bottles and just squirt some in. And the cleaner is quite a handy thing to sort of rest your airbrush in as well. So here we go with some black. So this will add a bit of contrast to those colours, the harmonious colours that we've got there. And I want to make sure I don't use the same bit of it, but put it in roughly the same sort of angle and the same depth of colour each time. As I've said before, you do get a sort of natural bit of gradient occurring when you're spraying on a template like this. And I think the black actually is the finishing colour for this. I think without the black it looks a little muted, a little bit weak. I wonder if with a bit more precision and care you could make something look a bit like a sort of poor version, a cheap version of a basket weave effect. A few more, let's see. I don't want to run out of colour in the middle of one of these. I'm just going to put a couple more drops in. Dry that off. Right, so the next one goes about there. And I think we've got room for one more. Move it up to a different piece. Maybe could have squeezed one in there. Okay. Now I've got a little bit of colour left. I'm going to use that to put a band around the wood. So just frame it. Don't need it spinning quite as fast as that. And one in the middle. And I'm pulling the airbrush back so that I get a nice faded effect. Let's see how that's come out. Give you a single view of that. Yeah, so I'm quite pleased with that. Around here where we've got one of the straight lines cutting through, it's a little bit uneven, so I might just thicken up this bit of black on the outside, partly because I've still got some left. Actually I haven't. Let's put some in. A few little drops. Okay, there we go. So that is a way of using one airbrush, 4 colours, without having to clean it. But I said if there were gaps, I'd want to go back and put some yellow in them, and there are some gaps, quite a few of the places there. So I want to firm up the colour, so I'm going to switch back to yellow. Obviously I can't do that straight away, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of cleaning out. So I'll just put those out of the way and move this out of the way. Get a little pot. Now you might think that the way to clean it is to put cleaner inside the airbrush and then blow it all out. Well, that's not really the best way, because you spend a long time just blasting air through. So I've just put some water in there. I'm just going to start flushing out, rinsing it out. You don't have to have one of these fancy bottles with a straw on coming out of the top, but these are from Amazon, or probably you can get them from eBay. I think tattooists use them. They keep saline solution or sterile solution or something in them, and that removes quite a bit, even though the solvent is not water for spirit stains. So we've cleaned out a fair bit there. Now you might be tempted to go inside your airbrush to clean it out and think, oh, a Q-tip would be great. Actually, what's better is a little paintbrush. Q-tips, cotton buds, things will break off them. So I don't do that. I use a brush just to put down inside there, just to agitate. Any remaining stain. There will come a point where we do need to blast through it, just to clean out what's left inside here. So let's do that now. Any water that's been left in it will come out now. And then to sort of flush any remaining bits out, you can put a little bit of meths in there, because meths is the closest you can get to the solvent for the stains. You could use an airbrush cleaner. They are designed usually to work with water paint and solvent paint, and they will also put in a little bit of lubrication. Now, one thing you can do to clean out this part of the airbrush, rather than just blasting through it, is to block the end. Now, because of the design of this needle cap, it's got a sort of crenellated end. I just block the end up with a bit of kitchen roll, and then if I just press down and get some air and then pull back, you can see that mess went from purple to black, because it's backwashing the front of the airbrush. And again, you don't blast all of this back out through the front of the airbrush, just tip it into your pot. So that's looking relatively clean in there. Just going to give it a little wipe to dry it. You can blast out anything left in the airbrush, but it's not clean. You can see there it's still blowing out black. So before we finish off, I'm just going to take the needle out. So I unscrew this end, unscrew that little collet nut, and then withdraw the needle. There we can see is the cause of the black. You've got a mucky needle. So I'm going to take a fresh piece of kitchen roll to clean that off. The way to do that, you could do it with cleaner or with meths for this particular stain that I'm using. So I put some on my cloth. I'm just going to pull the needle slowly, twisting it through the paper towel. You can see it's leaving a nice mucky line, and that's clean. Give it a couple more pulls. Always pull it towards you. Don't be tempted to run it backwards and forwards in the cloth, because the chances are you'll catch the end of that sharp point in your finger, hurt yourself and bend your needle. So just pulling. And then we need to obviously put that back into the airbrush. Careful not to let the trigger fall out when you're doing this, because the only thing holding the trigger in the airbrush is this needle going through a hole in the base of that. Right, so we put that in through there, push it through to the end, feel it hit the end, and then do that up. Now it's probably still going to be a bit gunky in there, so this is where we need to start blasting things through the front of the airbrush. Maybe you can see why I am so keen on having one colour for each airbrush. But this is a way of getting into airbrushing that's not too expensive. And this airbrush will always have a use. It may be that you sort yourself out with several other airbrushes, but use this one with just black every time. Just dedicate it to one colour if you know you're going to use black, which I almost always do. So just blasting that through. I'll just give it another quick little backwash. Let's see if that stays purple this time. Reasonably so. So we could be onto a good thing. And see it all disappearing from the cup. So now I'm going to just put a little bit of airbrush cleaner in there. A few drops. Bit of a backwash, working it into the airbrush and spray out the rest of the colour. And now if I spray on here, looking clean. Acid test, let's just put a little drop or two of water in. There we go, clean water coming out. So now I'm going to make it dirty again. Put some yellow in. And I'm just going to find the areas where I haven't got much coverage and just work some yellow into those areas. This is because I don't really like the wood showing through when I've done colouring on a rim. You might not have the same pathological aversion to that that I have, but I think this is warming it up. Now over the top of this, when it's dry, I will put spray on acrylic sanding sealer, and then over the top of that 3 coats of gloss lacquer, acrylic gloss lacquer. But you're going to have to wait maybe a little while for that to happen. I doubt it'll get done today, and I really would like to post something soon. It's been a little while, hasn't it? Oops. And I know a few of you who didn't come along to the Zoom I did where I tried out these airbrushes for the first time earlier in the week were interested in how this was done. So a bit of a rough and ready version. But I'm quite happy with that. I like that pattern, that design. As always, it will look better if you clean out the middle and get a nice wooden edge to it. But for this little short demonstration video, that's where I'm going to stop today. So where is the box for this one? Yeah. So if you are interested, as I said, I bought this. It's not been given to me. I paid my own money for it. All £21.55. And I'm quite impressed with the quality of it. The step up from here, for me, would be from this airbrush to the Iwata Neo, which is selling now for over £100. Very, very nice airbrush. The sort of entry-level Iwata one. But for putting stain onto wood, which is what I'm doing, this 21 55 airbrush with 2 needles. I'm not sure I'll ever change them, although maybe 0.2 might be a bit fine for paint. For these stains, it's absolutely wonderful. Does a very good job. It's an FE180K. I'll put a link to it in the comments at the bottom of the video. Until next time, thanks for watching.